Hi there, so I just wanted a really quick video about populism because I think a lot of people don't understand what people like me mean when we talk about populism when it comes to politics. Now, I've got a definition in front of me here, which is a political approach that strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by established elite groups. Which it is true. I think there's a deeper meaning though that definition is missing, which may be a bit arrogant of me to say. But I think it's best expressed in terms of a parable. So imagine, this is the parable of the populist builder. So you've got a bloke, Mr. Dunning-Kruger, let's say, yeah? And yes, there is a joke there. So Mr. Dunning-Kruger, he has a house which has a separate dining room and a lounge, and he wants them knocked through into one room. Now, the thing about Mr. Dunning-Kruger is he doesn't know what he doesn't know in this case about buildings. He thinks the only purpose of interior walls is to divide one room from another. He has no idea they might have another purpose. It doesn't even occur to him there might be another purpose. Anyway, as far as he's concerned, all it needs to do is you just need to get a sledgehammer, knock the wall down, tidy up the plaster on either side, ceiling, job done. You just do a bit of redecoration. He'd do it himself if it wasn't the fact he's got a bad back. So he has a choice of a big builder or a small, local independent builder. He decides to go for the big building chain because he's thinking that he wants to screw him over a big building firm. So he calls the big building firm, and they give him a load of say, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. As a big building firm, we're not going to go bankrupt. We're not going to disappear on you. We'll have the resource to do the job. You've made the right decision. But then they start talking about loads of things like load-bearing walls and RSJs, and what he thought would be like a half-day job with a couple of blokes and a sledgehammer and like a tiny little bit of plaster. They're now quoting like 2 days and thousands. He thought it'd be hundreds of pounds. They're quoting thousands of pounds. So at this point he gets really angry because they're clearly trying to rip him off. So he just kicks them out. So he then calls the other guy, the small local independent builder. And the other guy listens about how the big guy's trying to rip him off. He says, you're right, these big guys, they're just trying to rip you off. You can trust me. I'm a local guy. I work off my contacts. I've got a reputation here. You can trust me. But then he proceeds to start going on about load-bearing walls and RSJs and gives a quote that is in the thousands and is 2 days rather than the hundreds and half a day. So Mr. Dunning-Kruger at this point gets really angry and kicks him out. At this point he's despairing because what he can't understand is these guys present themselves as polar opposites, the big capitalist company and the small local independent builder. But to him, they're all the same. They're all trying to rip him off by coming up with all this crap about load-bearing walls and RSJs, things like that. But then the populist builder arrives. And the populist builder is the first bloke who listens to him, who doesn't just treat him like he's an idiot, who recognises that Mr. Dunning-Kruger understands how the world works. And he says, you're absolutely right, Mr. Dunning-Kruger. These guys, they say that they act like they're completely different, but they're all part of the building establishment, the elite building establishment, these so-called experts, and they're all colluding to rip you off. You're absolutely right. All we need to do, sledgehammer, knock it down, bit of tidying up, job done. So that's what happens. The populist builder knocks the wall down, half a day, tidies up a bit, a few £100, all good. Until, of course, the house falls down because it turns out it was a load-bearing wall and you needed to put in an RSJ. But that's the thing about populism. Populism is about when you have ordinary people who don't understand how the world works, rather than attempting the difficult task of explaining to them how the world works. And I know this sounds very elitist, but what the populists will do is they will reflect their misconceptions back at them in the form of lies. So if you imagine it's Germany, 1931 say, you're a steel worker, and for some reason your steel plant is shut down. Now, if there'd been a hurricane that had blown the steel plant down, you could understand that. If there'd been an earthquake that had shaken the steel plant down, you could understand that. But one day the bosses announced that no one wanted any steel anymore, so they just pulled the power, turned it off, told everyone to go home. They were all redundant, sacked. And literally, you could walk in tomorrow, pull the switch, start it up again, start making steel. And you can't understand why, because a bunch of people in America, like 4,000 miles away, borrowed money they didn't have to buy shares that turned out to not be worth very much. Why is your steel plant not making steel? Why is it sitting there idle? And why are you unemployed and starving? And you have the established Conservative parties and then the established Socialists. And they all present themselves as polar opposites. But they're all basically saying the same thing, right? The Conservatives are saying we've got to balance the books, and the Socialists are saying we've got to try and protect the unemployed and do better benefits and soup kitchen stuff like that. But they're all treating this thing which to you is just bullshit. They're treating it as a real thing that's actually happened, as if it's like a hurricane or an earthquake, when it's not. It's nothing. So you get disillusioned with both of them because neither of them can give you an answer that you understand as to why your steel mill has closed down. Then along comes Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler, finally, someone has an explanation that you understand. It's the Jews. The Jews control the world, and they've deliberately created this rubbish kind of bullshit recession, depression thing in order to make more money. Now, clearly, that's rubbish. That's massively anti-Semitic. It's hatefully anti-Semitic. But the point is, ordinary German people who couldn't understand this thing, finally, they got an explanation that they understood. It was lies, it was poisonous, hateful lies, but they understood it and they bought it. And that is the danger of populism, because conventional politics, whether you be on the right or the left, it's still grounded in actual reality. You're still attempting to tell, obviously you have your interpretation of reality, and the parties left and right will argue about how they interpret reality, but they're still grounded in actual basic reality and are attempting to tell the truth as they see it. Whereas a populist will just tell whatever lies make sense to an audience that doesn't understand. And that's why it's so dangerous. And I think that's why when people say Brexit was populist, because the Leave campaign made no attempt to actually understand or explain the implications of leaving the single market and the customs union. They made impossible contradictory promises that we could be like Norway, but not be in the single market, even though Norway isn't a single market. They did the whole 350 million a week to the NHS thing, even though it was actually 350 million for starters, and I've done another video on all of that. And none of that mattered. They were given explanations, they were given narratives that the electorate understood, as opposed to the Remain campaign that were either given narratives the electorate didn't understand, or in most cases they even really bothered to try, which is, that's a separate failure. But yeah, so that's the parable of the populist builder. And obviously, yes, also why you should always, when you're going to knock a wall down in your house, get an expert in who can tell you whether or not it's a load-bearing wall, because sometimes you do actually need experts.